Welcome back. Let's talk about revenues for competitive firms. Perfectly competitive firms if we're being real picky with our terminology. But the important idea here is that these firms are price takers. They don't have control over price. They look to the market for the price. All right, so let's set this up. So what do I mean by this? Well, let's look at an example, right? So let's look at the example of like a hot dog stand at the state fair. So there are lots of hot dog stands at the state fair. That's the idea. They're sort of all selling the same thing. All right, so if we were to set up and think about hot dogs at the state fair, and we just think about this market. So we've got price versus quantity. We've got a supply of hot dogs and a demand for hot dogs. All right, so this is our market supply and our market demand, and where those two intersect gives us our market price. So we could call this P star MKT for our market price. And let's suppose that it's something like $9. All right, so $9 for a hot dog at the state fair. So what does this market then mean for the individual firm? So if we think about a competitive firm, right, so the competitive firm, in this case, what is it? It's just a hot dog stand, right? So the hot dog stand. What does their world look like? So this is a stand at the fair. There are lots of different stands, but this is one of them we're looking at. So how does this market for hot dogs translate over to think about this firm's perspective and their decisions? So we want to think about, for them, quantity versus price of hot dogs. So remember, this is a competitive market, which means this firm is a price taker. It can't affect price. So what happens is it looks at, well, what's the price of a hot dog at the state fair? Well, gee, all the other places are selling them for $9. So that means this firm's price then is $9. That's what they can sell hot dogs for. If they raise their price, everybody goes to another hot dog vendor. If they lower their price, they're just losing money. So what that means then is this $9 is its demand curve. So this is the demand curve that this firm sees. The demand for this one firm, this one hot dog stand's hot dogs. All right, so what does this mean for total revenue, average revenue, marginal revenue, etc.? So let's take a look at this idea in a table. This shouldn't be surprising from this point forward. We're just trying to sort of solidify ideas now. All right, so let's think about quantity. So we could have a quantity of, well, 1 isn't all that interesting, but I guess that's where we'll start. All right, so we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So they could sell anywhere from 1 hot dog to 8 hot dogs. You could imagine this keeping on going, but let's just stop here. This is going to be enough for us to fill in. All right, so what's the price of hot dogs if they sell 1 or if they sell 8? So note that this price is the same no matter what the quantity is, right? At a low quantity of 1, they can sell it for $9. At a high quantity of 8 in this case, they could sell it for $9. So the price is $9 regardless of how many they're selling. They can sell as many as they want as long as they sell them at this market price of $9. Okay, so if they're selling hot dogs at $9 each, what's the firm's total revenue? This shouldn't be too hard either. Like I said, none of this should be real surprising. As much as anything, we're just solidifying and fixing ideas. So if they sell one hot dog, so one hot dog at $9, what's their total revenue? It's $9. If they sell two at $9, what is it? It's 18. If they sell three, 27. You see where this is going, right? We can finish filling this in. 4 is 36. 5 is 45. If they sell 6 hot dogs, then they're looking at $54. If they sell 7, their total revenue is $63. And if they sell 8, their total revenue is $72. Right? So what quantity do they sell times the price gives us their total revenue. Right? Where does total revenue come from? It's just price times quantity. That's all this is. Okay, so the next part is maybe more important when we start thinking about firms other than perfectly competitive firms, but let's think it through for these competitive firms. Let's look at average revenue and let's look at marginal revenue. And like I said, these are going to be terribly uninteresting. What's the average revenue? Well, if they sell one hot dog at $9, their average revenue, so total revenue divided by the quantity, is $9. What's the average selling price of a hot dog? Well, it's $9. Okay, if they sell 2 hot dogs at $9, that means they have $18 in revenue. Well, where did that $18 come from? It comes from selling 2 hot dogs. So what's the average revenue from selling a hot dog? It's $9. Okay, you see where this is going. Again, like I said, maybe not the most interesting table. So where does average revenue come from? How are we getting this number? Well, it's just total revenue divided by the quantity sold. That's all that is. So since the price of hot dogs is fixed, right? Every hot dog sells for $9. In this case, what is our average revenue? It's just $9, no matter what quantity they sell. And then finally, the last one, what's our marginal revenue? What's the revenue from selling one additional hot dog? Well, that's just going to be the price. So $9. 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, and $9. So what are our takeaways from this? What are the ideas that we want to take away from this table and from our discussion up above? So 4 competitive firms. Right? What are our takeaways? So the first one is, let's look at this total revenue column. All right, so our first takeaway is that total revenue is equal to price times quantity. Our second takeaway is that the firm's average revenue is just equal to price. Right? If every unit sells for that same price, then what's the average revenue or the revenue per unit? It's the price. This will be more entertaining when we think about monopolies, oligopolies, etc. And then finally, the last one, our last column, marginal revenue for a competitive firm is also just equal to price. So what are our takeaways? What are our big punchlines? These competitive firms have to accept the market price. Their good's the same as every other good. If they change the price of their hot dogs, people are going to go buy their hot dogs somewhere else. So they're forced to accept this market price, right? The market determines the price, and then that's the price that the hot dog seller uses or the competitive firm uses in its decision-making process. So what does that mean when we start thinking about these tables of numbers, etc.? It means that it doesn't matter what the quantity is, the price is the same. That's this horizontal line, right? At $9, they can sell as many hot dogs as they want. That's the idea. Where does total revenue come from? Well, we just take price times quantity and we get total revenue. the average revenue and the marginal revenue are also the same. They're just the price for this competitive firm. Again, story is different when we start thinking about monopolies, oligopolies, etc. But our purpose here is to think about this firm that takes prices given what does it mean for its numbers. It means if it sells another unit, its marginal revenue is the price. If it sells another unit, its average revenue stays the same. It's still the price. And how many can they sell at the market price? As many as they want. This table could go on forever. But we don't want this video to go on forever. This is a good spot for us to pause and leave it here. And we'll say thank you, and we'll see you next time.